children. Mr. Moorhead coming to you on this rainy afternoon, rainy night, live from Moorhead Studios. You're going to get a lesson about John Calvin. Now, I love movies, especially from when I was little. I don't watch very many movies now, but like Star Wars. Now, I know that there's some different numbering. I'm not going to get into that, but when I was little, there was Star Wars, and then the second movie was Empire Strikes Back. And that was kind of neat. It like continued the story. Now, there was like Ghostbusters, legendary movie. And then Ghostbusters 2 wasn't nearly as good, but it still followed up and continued this story. John Calvin is kind of the part two of Martin Luther, or he's the part two of the Protestant Reformation. He's the guy that keeps the story going. Now, while he is part two, there's still a lot of differences between Calvin and between Martin Luther. Now, I will not give you the whole story of John Calvin. When you guys come back on your next in-person day, you'll be getting another story. So I try to limit the amount of stories just due to time. But I will discuss a few things about John Calvin, not necessarily in story format. Now, you will want to get these as notes. These will be notes. So far, most of us, cohort A and cohort B, we have Martin Luther notes. We have Martin Luther part two notes. We obviously have daily and recap questions, and we have notes on Erasmus. Now, if you're the Monday, Tuesday group, you'll be watching this video and you'll have an extra set of notes on another person. That's where we are. We're very close to wrapping up this Protestant Reformation. All right, now back to John Calvin. John Calvin is French. Now, there is an alternate way to spell his name. It doesn't really have the L in it. So if you're researching it and you're like, wow, that guy's name looks a little different, there is another spelling to his name. Now, remember that Martin Luther, his family, they're very, very hard workers. While they did attend church, they're not super religious. John Calvin's family actually worked for the church. So he grows up within the church and being an important part of the church for the majority of his youth. Now, he is going to start school to become a priest. There are several classes that within France and where he grew up, that they start learning philosophy, they start learning some foreign language, Greek, Latin, Hebrew, those are languages of the Bible. So they start learning those in a preparation to get to school for being a priest. But strangely enough, he withdraws and becomes a lawyer. So this is like the opposite of Martin Luther, but there's still some commonalities between them. So later, he is going to begin like preaching privately. So while he does go to law school, it wasn't this massive interest of his. He did really well in law school, but he kind of goes back to this priest, or this idea of becoming a priest, although he was never officially a priest for the Catholic Church. So he begins preaching in private, and he becomes famous for a lot of his writings, and we'll talk more about that in just a moment. Now, he will break with the Catholic Church. While there is Martin Luther had the indulgences and disagreed with those, we see that Calvin often focuses on like power within the church, within personal relationships in the church. So his problems with the Catholic Church are slightly different than Martin Luther. Now, when he breaks from the Catholic Church, we shortly afterward come out with a book called Institutes of the Christian Religion. Now, here is what he does different than Martin Luther, and this might have been tougher to a certain degree. Martin Luther often picked out things that were wrong with the church and said, hey, this is something I don't like. I think it's incorrect. But there was not a lot of defining what like these new Protestants believed. Okay? They could tell you what they didn't believe, but they had a hard time like putting into writing like what, okay, so you don't believe in the indulgence thing, you don't believe in this. Like, so what do you believe? And this is where we start to see the foundation of Protestantism. We see institutes of the Christian religion. There's like a more in-depth conversation about, okay, here's the things we didn't like about the church we split from, and here's the things that we believe. So this is kind of like the foundation of Protestantism. It specifically discusses what Protestants believe. Now, he is going to continue the work of Luther, although they never met. All right, they never actually physically met one another. Now, another difference that you're going to see between them, Luther is like, his language is kind of crude. It's very common, and he has a sense of humor. And people were drawn to that. Those characteristics, is he seemed, even though he's a priest, he's very educated, he seemed just like everybody else. You're going to see that Calvin is the exact opposite of that. Calvin, not real humorous. Calvin, probably not a lot of fun in person. Calvin is not going to put a joke within his sermons. However, he is an absolute ridiculously good writer. Okay, like as far as like biblical stuff goes, he's maybe like a Shakespeare. Like, he writes really, really well, and his writing flows. It's very easy to read. It's very like what's sequential, meaning like step 1, step 2, step 3, and he's very famous for this writing style. That's where he gets his fame. That's where people are like, wow, he's really really famous for this writing, and people start to take notice of the things he's saying. So Luther, with the 95 Theses, if you read them, like, it's kind of tough to read. Like, you get it, but it's by no means like it's maybe more along the lines of kind of like a text message. It's not this like Shakespearean type, oh wow, that's a wonderful writer. Like, we don't get that from Luther. So there's a difference in their communication. Luther probably more personable up front, and we have Calvin, a much better writer, not quite as humorous. Now, he is going to have the Bible written into French vernacular. So we know that he is French. We had Luther had the German vernacular, but Calvin will write in the French vernacular. So there are things that they disagreed about, little splits from one another, but for the most part, I need you to know that John Calvin is kind of like the Empire Strikes Back, or Ghostbusters 2, or think of any second part of a movie that continues the story. It might be a little bit different, but it continues the story. And that's who John Calvin is. He is Martin Luther, kind of part 2. He keeps the Protestant Reformation going. And if we look back down to here, he specifically starts to talk about this is what Protestants believe. All right, guys. So you're going to get these notes. You can pause the video to get the notes. Make sure you get them on a separate sheet of paper. John Calvin is your topic. All right. I hope you enjoyed the lesson. I tried to keep it short. I hope you guys have a great day.